We're going to be brainstorming who was the intriguing, mysterious, and extraordinarily skilled S.W. Erdnase. I do, it's the Eight of Hearts. Well, it reminds me of the infinity symbol.
If you read it backwards, it spells E.S. Andrews.
Whoa. What?
You have two cards on the table right here, and the aim of the move is to switch those cards. And then these cards that were on the table are now in your hands, and it just looks like you're turning those.
You have introduced me to a mystery. It reminds me of like the Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know who created something that's so influential. Why is S.W. Erdnase a mysterious person?
Well, what he did is he wrote one of the most influential magic books that we have up until today. So some people refer to it as the Bible of card magic.
That's that one right there.
Yeah, that's that one right there. Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
If you could demonstrate a couple things that came from the book, I think that would be awesome before we kind of continue into the mystery of
I would love to do
was.
that. Totally, let's do that. Okay. I show you an entire trick. It uses techniques from the book, but not exclusively.
Perfect.
Okay?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to see this.
So, do you have a favorite card?
I do. It's the Eight of Hearts.
Eight of Hearts. Why is it the Eight of Hearts?
Well, it reminds me of the infinity symbol, the eight.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
I like math and
Is that really?
Yeah,
nerd. What the heck?
It reminds me of the
This guy
infinity
says-
symbol, just sideways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just give the deck a couple of cards and
Okay.
I shuffle the cards just like this.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So what did you say your favorite card was?
Eight of Hearts.
The Eight of Hearts. Okay, let's.
Oh, nice.
Wow,
Where
that
did
was
that
clean.
come from? That's crazy.
Do you want to use a
Crazy.
different card, or do you want to keep going with the Eight of Hearts?
Yeah, well, I guess keep going.
Okay.
I don't like any other
Okay,
cards.
let's say I put it in the middle somewhere.
Okay,
Like here.
yeah,
okay?
looks like it's in
so
the
it's
middle.
not on bottom, not on top, right?
Right,
And
right,
I can
right,
give
right,
it another cut, just like this.
Okay.
Okay,
So
and
it's
one more
really
shuffle?
lost in there, but probably not. I don't know.
One more shuffle, just like this.
Okay.
Okay. And in this case, because I shuffled after I put the card inside, I don't know where your card is, and you don't know where your
I don't
card
know where
right?
it is. Yeah,
It's not on bottom and it's not on top. That's important.
Okay, so we're in
But
the middle.
the two jokers can actually help us to find your card.
What?
And the way this works is
How would they help
we
us?
have the
They're
two
just
jokers
cards.
here. We have this joker, right? We take it
Oh my god.
Shut
right here.
up.
and
What?
they now
That's
look
so
through the
crazy.
entire deck trying to find one card and
Yeah,
one
yeah,
card
yeah,
only.
yeah. The two jokers? No, and mine's right there in between it.
Sandwiched in
What?
between
How
two
in
jokers.
the world?
One card.
No, that's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that is impressive because you
What
didn't
the-
even shuffle it after I saw the jokers and then they disappeared. Wow, I could see why this book influenced a lot of criminals mostly. Criminals is what I think it influenced.
Also criminals, yes, but nowadays
and good
mostly
and
magicians.
fair magicians that just use it for entertainment.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool. I was not a child that grew up doing a lot of magic. I know Matt and Jen and you were, but I could see exactly why at an early age that would be an exciting thing. Why is it the Bible of card magic?
That's an interesting question. The first person who named it the Bible of card magic was Vernon, a very famous magician from the 20th century. And he declared the book The Expert of the Card Table to the Bible for every card magician and sleight of hand artist, basically.
Oh yeah.
And he was one of the most influential magicians at the time. And people listened to what he said, and he said, basically, all you need is this book. and then he improved on all the techniques that are described in that book.
Yeah.
And the moves we use today to fool people and to create mysteries, a lot of those techniques
They all
are
stem
actually
from
from Vernon and what he created from the techniques listed in that book.
You know, Matt's a magician. Is this true? Can you verify all of this?
Oh, without a doubt. When I was in high school, I did the ambitious card routine, which was made by Vernon.
Okay.
And he's just very, very influential card magician.
So is it a book that you had before you realized that there was a mysterious author? Or is it
As a matter of
something-
fact, yes. As a matter of fact, yes. When I was 15 years old, I started doing magic. And as I think most people nowadays, I got into doing magic because of YouTube videos and so on. But the first book I read cover to cover, well, the first magic book I read cover to cover was The Expert of the Card Table.
Oh.
And when I applied to become a member of the Magic Circle in Germany, you have to pass an exam. And
Okay,
in order
a
to
magic
pass
exam?
yeah,
Yep,
yeah, of
that's
course
true,
you have.
That's true.
And there are actually
Very
3
Harry
parts
Potter
to it. You
over.
have like the theory and a practical part, and you have to have a little show.
Okay.
And in this little show, let's say 80% of the tricks I showed in this little show you have to perform are actually based on techniques described in that book.
So it's not a magic book. It's a card manipulation book. Is that how I should understand it?
People argue about this a lot. So
okay.
there are
Bring
two,
the debate
two
on. I
parts
wanna
of the
hear both sides. What do you got? Matt will take one
The
side.
magic controversy.
I'll
right
keep
here.
you two separated.
Yeah,
so
it's a
no
big
injuries
controversy.
here.
Don't ask this question at a magic conference. Like, if you want to start a ruffle, maybe, but
Oh yeah, you
Oh,
might
right,
have
that's
to
what I
hold me
want.
off.
I need a list of every question that will start a ruffle and then go to a magic convention. But
Yeah.
anyways, okay. So tell me about it. What's this
well,
book all
there
about?
are 2 parts of the book. The first part exclusively deals with how to cheat at the poker table or at other card games.
Dang.
And this is like 2/3 of the book. And the last third of the book is then describing magic tricks to perform for, well, friends and family.
Oh,
So
I
it's sort of
gotcha.
a quite an odd combination, actually, if you think about it.
Uh-huh.
Right. Yeah, so the author might have actually been somebody who was maybe manipulating cards and stealing money, but then also wanted to make sure there's a performance element to cover his tracks, I guess, or something.
Well, maybe. Some people say he was a magician and he learned a lot of his sleights from hustlers. And this is why there are both parts to that book. Other people say, no, he was definitely not a magician. He was a card shark, and it was the other way around. So we legitimately don't know.
Oh, in your personal opinion, is he more magician or cheater?
Yeah, I don't want to get in the
Come
middle of the
on.
rough.
Oh,
Hang
you
on,
gotta
man.
give me an answer, bro. We
Don't
won't let
keep
you
weak
leave
on
until.
this. Come on, let's put this on the internet.
I would say he was a cheater.
Oh, well, you could have. Yeah, I was like, whoa, bro, you actually went there. I don't know. But yeah, you just get that feeling, huh?
Yeah,
Just from the way it's
from the well, the book has a subtitle sort of. It's not The Expert of the Card Table. It's Artifice, Ruse, and Subterfuge at the Card Table, a treatise on the science and art of manipulating cards.
Oh,
Okay.
I think this title tells us a lot about what his approach to this art form really was, because I think he discovered an art form that he really loved, and he
Okay.
wanted to save for future generations.
Okay.
And I think the title, if you read this through, it doesn't say cheating at a card table. It doesn't say magic tricks. It says artifice, ruse, and subterfuge at the card table.
Oh, so the title wasn't expert at the card table?
Yes, it was. But if you open up the cover, the next thing you read is this.
Oh, I see. So it doesn't say anything about magic tricks or anything like
Yeah.
that?
What does subterfuge mean? Okay, that
course.
sounds good. Let's find out what.
What does it say?
It means deceit used in
Deceit.
order to achieve one's goals.
Whoa, nice.
Ouch.
Let's add that to our lexicons, everyone.
okay.
New word.
Or what? Or whaticons?
Lexicons. That's your
Lexicon.
mental dictionary.
Oh,
but think about
man.
it, subterfuge. We can try to use it 3 times during the podcast tonight. That'd be
Word of the
great.
day.
Yeah.
So I actually have a question for you. I'm looking through this photographs. I believe this is like one of the early
That's
photographs of the book. Why is Houdini's picture here?
Well, Houdini had a copy of the book, as far as I know, and this is
Houdini read this book?
I think so. Yes.
Oh, for sure. I believe that.
yeah.
What year was it published?
1902. The book was published in 1902.
Okay.
Well, yeah, Houdini was during Di Vernon's time, and Di Vernon loved this book. So
See when Houdini was born and died? I'm not up
And
on it.
Di
I'm not up
Vernon
on it
was
like
also
you guys
known
are.
as the man who fooled Houdini.
The same guy who called it the Bible.
Yeah. The same
Oh,
guy.
okay.
Exactly.
Now I see how everything's coming together here.
he died in 1926.
Oh. I didn't realize he was
Di
alive
Vernon
in the
would have been about
1900s.
28 years old, I think.
Or
Uh,
is this a completely fictional name?
Erdnase is not a real name. So this is fairly obvious because this name doesn't exist anywhere on any birth
Nowhere.
certificate. No,
Okay,
nowhere.
gotcha.
However, if you read it backwards, it spells E.S. Andrews.
What?
And
So-
Andrews is a very popular name.
Yeah, Andrews is a popular name. There is another anagram where you have to
Andrews.
shuffle the individual letters a little bit more, and then you would get W.E. Sanders, which is another theory.
Oh.
So But most theories revolve around this idea that you just have to read the name backwards. However, this might also be a false trail because it's quite easy to come up with this solution.
If he's sneaky enough, he would have known we would try that.
Exactly, especially because maybe he was a magician. We don't know. So other people say, well, the name sounds a little German because it consists of two words that sort of appear in the German language. Erdnase, Nase in German means nose, and wie Erde in Deutsch, in German is earth.
Earth nose? Earth nose?
Earth nose. It would then be earth nose, but the word
perfect sense. I put it all together now.
The word doesn't exist, but you could understand it like this if you pronounce it that way.
Did you talk to people from other languages besides German? And was there any other connections?
We didn't find any other connections. I think even the German connection is quite far-fetched. But there are some people who argue maybe Erdnase was a German immigrant and this was his nickname in school or something like this. I don't believe that, but I mean, it could be. We don't know.
Do we have a location of like where the book was published and
the
where
book
this
was published in
lived?
Chicago. The book was published in Chicago in 1902. And actually, we know quite a bit about how the illustrations in the book came about. Because on the title page, there is the name M.D. Smith.
Okay.
So the author of the book hid his own name behind this alias, but put the illustrator of his book, his real name.
So
he put this there.
Okay, what do we know about the illustrator?
Yeah, we tracked him down 44 years later after he potentially met with the author. And the man who tracked him down was a magician and journalist, mathematician, Martin Gardner, quite well known.
Okay.
And Martin Gardner, let's think of him as a detective, sort of. He was also fascinated by the Erdnase mystery. He was actually the first person ever to seriously look into this topic.
Okay.
And he was very serious about this. He looked up so many newspaper articles and he tracked down the illustrator of the book, Marshall Dennison Smith, M.D. Smith.
Okay.
And he was a local artist in Chicago at the time. He was doing, I think, some cartoon work. And he called him up and basically asked him, hey.
Yeah, give me the rundown.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? I've been wondering. Yeah.
So who is this guy?
Do you remember this book of this card sheet you illustrated? And by the time Smith was already quite old, so he didn't remember the exact meeting. He remembered about where it took place. It would have been in a hotel.
Gotcha.
It was a very cold winter day. He remembered that Erdnase had a small pad, just like this one on the table over here, with like a green cloth. Where he would use that to present his tricks and to display the hands.
He had a card mat.
Yeah, but he wasn't able to recall the name. He just said, well, Erdnase doesn't really ring a bell. And then what Gardner did is he introduced the name Andrews because it was his theory. Yeah. But it is sort of confirmation bias because like, how about Andrews? Huh? And then he was like, yeah, Andrews sounds correct. It's definitely a W in there. So it's hard to go on that.
Yeah.
So there's probably like no way he wrote the book, right?
Yeah, some people say maybe it was the illustrator himself, but that's...
was that guy a card shark? The illustrator?
No, I don't think he even knew what he was illustrating. No, it wasn't quite as bad, but I think for Marshall Dennison Smith, it was a job like any other job.
Right. And it happened so many years ago.
Yeah,
it just kind of faded
like
away.
44 years ago, maybe you remember the card tricks if they were cool at the time for a week or maybe even a month, but it's nothing that sticks with you for 44 years.
The problem with the gig economy, man. He was the early freelancer.
Yeah.
You don't keep track of all your bosses. Okay, so tell me about the different theories, especially the three major ones that you cover in your movie.
Yeah. Okay, there are a lot of theories. There are way more than 3 theories out there. But there are some that are more popular and some that are less popular. So the most popular one would be the one that Martin Gardner created or thought of after conversing with the illustrator. And he found a card shark who died in 1905 in San Francisco. As a matter of fact, he shot his girlfriend and then himself.
What?
Wow. Sounds
No
like
way.
Sounds like the kind of person who might want to hide his identity.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And we know he was a card shark.
For
and
sure.
He
That's
also
my number one theory right now. And the fact it's the first one I've heard.
It's
So
definitely the most dramatic one.
Okay.
He also killed his prior girlfriends, and then when the police closed in on him, he fled the country before that, and he went to Australia, and then he came back after a year or so, and then he assaulted a business associate of his, and I think he invited him over to his house. And with a hammer, he attacked him from behind.
Oh my gosh.
However, his business associate, Friday Ellis was his nickname, had an abnormally thick skull, so he survived the attack.
Are you serious right now?
Oh yeah, hammer-proof skulls. Those are a thing, bro.
I guess he was hard-headed.
Some people are born with it. Some people aren't. Oh, hard-headed. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Less puns, please.
I mean, he was bleeding and going down to the street and then going to the police. And Andrews was on the run with his girlfriend Nulda Olivia. And then they needed to hide yet again from the law.
Again?
Yeah.
Where did they hide?
They hid in an inn, a pension. What do you call it?
Oh, like a hotel.
It was an hotel. They rented a room. They rented a room in I think it was in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
I see.
And across the street there was a bakery. And because Milton Franklin Andrews had a very crazy digestive system, he couldn't process a lot of food, and he would get stomach aches due to various medical reasons.
Okay.
So he could only eat very certain food. For example, he couldn't eat the crust of bread and only certain types of milk.
Really? He killed people, but he's like very picky about his food.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Things.
This is actually how the police tracked him down.
Oh,
through his diet.
Yeah, through his diet. They went to grocery stores and bakeries all over town and asked them whether something weird was happening, weird customers. And there's one a woman at the bakery, Mrs. Hornbeck. She said, yeah, actually there's this young woman. Actually, she was a normal customer, but then from one day to another, she suddenly had colored her hair red and was hiding behind a pair of goggles.
Oh, very suspicious.
Sort of suspicious. And also she buys like 5 loaves of bread every day and a dozen eggs or so.
Okay.
The police asked where does she live? And this is the way they tracked this couple, this Bonnie and Clyde kind of couple
so it
down.
really did come from the diet.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And then they came to up to their apartment, and the police officer who was leading the investigation dressed up as a gas inspector.
What? That's hilarious.
To get entry into this.
That's kind of comical. Come on.
Dude,
this
Andrews was hiding in the closet.
Oh, of course.
Oh my gosh! Are you kidding?
Yeah. We actually show this in the movie I'm making on. So he dressed up as a gas inspector, trying to get entry to that room, and I think he guessed that Andrews was hiding somewhere in there because the bed was crammed in front of the wardrobe, so nobody would position a bed like that.
Right? You're like, what are you doing? What's in there?
So he went back into the hallway and tried to get back up. And when Nulda and Andrews noticed that they had no way of getting out of there, Andrews decided to,
turn himself in, time has run out. Oh, wait, what does he do?
Not turn himself in, but call it a day.
Yeah, okay.
So he shot his girlfriend. They sort of had a pact to kill each other and not to go as a couple.
Wow.
So he first shot her and then himself.
Wow.
That's
brutal.
Yeah, that's really brutal.
It's definitely the most dramatic theory. So.
Oh man.
But it's not the only one. You wanted to know about the others as well.
Okay, theory 1 of 3 down. What's theory number 2?
Theory number 2 is a little bit more down to earth. So there's this guy, Richard Hedge, who is a very well-respected magician and historian in the magic industry.
Okay.
And he came up with the theory that if you read the name backwards again, you get E.S. Andrews. Exactly. And he also had a look at the initials, E.S. So he was looking at a guy called Edwin Sumner Andrews.
Okay.
And there are a couple of Andrewses at the time, but we also know, Yeah, in Chicago,
Yeah,
exactly.
Chicago
We have to
in
limit
19
the search, and this is exactly what Richard did. So
Exactly.
he only looked in Chicago, in that area. And then he found this guy who was working for the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad Company.
Gotcha.
And he was a traveling agent. And at the time, it was very, very common to play cards on train rides. Usually it was like wealthy businessmen going through town, and they had a lot of time to kill. So there was a lot of gambling done on the train.
I feel like this one could be right. Yeah.
And what he suspects is, as a traveling agent, you always have another audience.
Yeah.
And this is, if you want to cheat people, this is very handy. Because if you go to a casino and you scam
Drop
the
'em
people
off in a different
one day and
city
you go
and-
there the next day, at some point people won't play with you anymore. Or they will break your leg or do
I'm starting
whatever.
to like
Exactly.
this theory seems like it might make sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense, yes.
Yeah.
However,
This is our guy.
Well, it's still it's just a story, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's the same confirmation bias, because
Yeah.
everything sounds like, yeah, that fits and that fits and that fits.
But so this guy was traveling as an employee of
Yes,
the
exactly.
railroad company.
Yeah, so
constantly.
a traveling agent at the time, as far as I understand it, they supplied the travelers with information and helped them when they were traveling to another city to get accommodation over there, and they were telling them where to get stuff, and yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a perfect. Yeah, I could imagine that. And then he's meeting everyone, telling him where to go, and then he's
And then
feeling them
asking
out.
for a game of cards.
Yeah, you guys, you know, if
Yeah.
you got nothing else to do, we should play some cards.
That might
Yeah.
be the
Yeah,
perfect
okay.
job.
Yeah. So, and
Interesting.
I can sympathize with this person a little bit. Not with Milton Franklin Andrews, but with this E.S. Andrews character.
Okay.
Because at the time when the book came out, and now let me get this right, I think he was married twice. And his first wife died, I think it was in 1897. His father had also some health issues, so he definitely was in need of money. And I think the job he had paid okay, but not to provide for an entire family, including his father.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on this guy to make a little extra
Exactly.
income.
So I think I can understand why he did it if he actually is our guy. So.
Right.
yeah.
If he had the skills and felt the need for money and had the audience that was traveling, and yeah, there's a lot of reasons why that could be the right guy.
Yeah, definitely. It
Okay.
makes a lot of sense if you think about it. But it's just a story.
So far I like the second one. What's your third one?
Okay. The third one, I would say it's the most far-fetched. And there's this guy called Charles Andrews, or Charles Edward Andrews. And there was this one guy who was put in jail because of, tax fraud and some other reasons that don't really have to do anything with cards, but he was scamming people. And what he would do is he would go to a town and introduce himself as a debt collector of some sort.
Okay.
And then he would be hired by companies to get their
sounds like
debts
trouble.
for their customers.
Gotcha.
Yeah?
Yep. The old...
So he would go to those people, collect those debts, and leave. Go to another town.
Oh my god.
and then move it along. It's the old
Yeah.
Indian. Yeah. I feel like it's.
And he would also get a provision beforehand. So he would go to the companies, they would pay him in order to collect the debts.
And then
So he
he'd
would
go
get
get the
this payment,
debts.
then he would collect the debts, and then he would just skip town.
Ooh, that sounds like a guy who would want to hide his work too.
That's funny.
And he did this fairly successfully for a couple of years. But at some point, you come to a town where you have been before. And this is when they put him in jail. And when he was in jail, he was interviewed by a news reporter. And some of the statements he made during that interview might make you believe that he was also cheating in other worlds and other.
Yeah, like some at the card table for
Yeah,
sure.
at-
He
at
might
the
be
card table,
figuring
for
out some
example.
shady underground places to do some gambling.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
definitely.
Seems like that kind of
He
guy.
had the correct mindset to do that. I mean, if you scam
Oh.
people like this, if you are a con
Well,
artist,
especially if he's leaving town, like same thing where you talk about different audience every night
Yeah.
on the train. This guy was, jumping town as soon as he got his debts collected. He could play a little bit of gambling,
Yeah,
double his
on the
money,
side.
and then he'd be out.
definitely.
Yeah. Ooh, he doesn't seem
So
so
he's
far-fetched.
definitely the right mindset. And there's another strange thing.
Okay, what?
Because
Lay
there
it
was
on me.
another guy called Charles Andrews who was known as the gambling king of North Indiana. Actually, the guy that was put in jail, his actual name was E.S. Andrews, or he also used this as his name.
Two of them? You think
Really?
those two together?
maybe those were the same person, but we don't know that.
Oh.
Dude,
And then we would have this
crazy.
person who named himself E.S. Andrews, who was
Yeah.
pulling all these scams. And then we have this Charles Andrews, who was known as the gambling king of North Indiana. And if it's actually true that these two persons are actually the same person, then I think that would
That
be
sounds
pretty
very
cool.
realistic.
Yeah, I know you're not up on that one as much as the others, though, right? You think that's the most far-fetched?
Yeah, I think bringing those
Anyone?
two together, there are some inconsistencies if you look at
Okay.
their lives. So I don't think it
I like that
really
one too,
can
though.
be the same person. But maybe, I mean...
So presumably, if you write a book, you kind of want to be a little bit famous and hopefully make some money for your efforts. Was there ever a royalty paycheck that went to anyone, or is it just public domain? Like, what's the deal with
the book was published by
authorship?
the author himself,
Right.
which is strange enough because the author didn't want to be known. And I think if you wanted to track him down at the time, it would have been fairly easy because you also know where the book was printed. It was printed at James McKinney's,
Okay.
which was a printing shop in Chicago. Actually, the copyright notice was also filled out with this pseudonym. So on the copyright notice, it also says S.W. Erdnase.
Okay.
Really?
So also no luck tracking him down this way.
Yeah.
At the time, I think you could have done. You could have gone to the printing shop asking, "Hey, did you print this book?" And they would have told you, "No, we didn't do it, but this looks like McKinney 2 streets down on the left or something." And then you would have found the printing shop at some point.
Right.
But it wasn't a mystery yet.
Nobody was asking at the time exactly. So, yeah.
Okay, so
That's
no way to
fascinating.
track it down that way. So is there a bunch of checks somewhere sitting around waiting for this guy to pick them up, or we don't know? I guess.
I don't.
Where does
I
the
don't
money
know.
go
Just
to?
public domain.
Smith, the illustrator, received a check when he was doing the illustration because he wasn't
Yeah,
paid in
but
cash.
he got paid just one time. And
Yeah,
then
he
was
just
done.
got paid one time, and he
Yeah.
didn't remember the name on the check.
What?
I mean,
Go to the
yes,
bank,
it was
come on.
44 years later, but this would have been like the biggest lead, right? You have this guy, and he has this check probably with the
No.
real name because you can't write a check with like an alias.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
that's
gosh.
fascinating.
Oh, you're on an interesting website right now. Do you know why? Library.com is a website by one of our interview partners in the movie.
Whoa.
Oh.
No
Chris
way.
Washuber has his very own theory. It has nothing to do with the alias because he says probably this was a false trail.
Yeah. Not
Really?
even relevant at all.
So he found someone who was working at the printing shop where the book was actually printed and bound and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the name was Edward Galloway of the person who was working there. And Edward Galloway, they found a copy of the book at his home. And also, he actually did write. And the book is very eloquently written.
Yeah.
I'm not a native speaker, but to me, it reads like very artistic. It's very well written. It doesn't appear like a very technical book, although it is. So the writing style is fairly sophisticated. It's hard to believe that this would be the writer's first writing experience.
Yeah.
And Edward Galloway did write. He did write on very different topics than card table artifice, but he did write.
But he did right.
And what Chris Washuber did is he
That's
ran
interesting,
linguistic
too.
analysis on various books and on various
yeah.
candidates. For example, Milton Franklin Andrews, the murderer.
Right.
He wrote an alibi letter to the newspaper at the time, trying to make excuses for why he did what he did. And yeah. And of course, this is a whole different context. But if you analyze the writing style of those letters and the book, they sound nothing.
Oh,
like
really?
one
Yeah,
another.
because I know there's some really interesting technology now. That's how they figured out that J.K. Rowling was the pseudonym for the cuckoo's nest or something like that. It was because of the writing analysis. So he's actually applied that technique and not found any matches. But he's sort of proven this
the
is a
closest
bit.
match he did find was Edward Galloway. And this is why Chris Washuber is very certain that he has found Erdnase.
Why did you put this in your major 3? Do you think it's potentially
Because it's the most boring theory.
okay?
Really?
And when you're making an amazing movie like you have, you
It
want to
is
make
in the
sure that
movie,
it's
but we didn't do a reenactment scene on that.
okay.
Oh.
But you cover the concept in it.
Exactly. We cover the concept and we talk about
And we have a photo
this
of this
theory.
guy too.
We have a photo of this guy as well, yes.
Does that, Matt, what do you think? Does that look like somebody who would be a card shark?
He looks exactly like a magician.
That's how everybody dressed back then, bro.
No.
That's how they
He
all
was
did.
working for a circus with a friend of his.
That's interesting.
What?
So, I mean, he was working at the printing shop where the book was printed and bound and everything.
Oh,
he was a
man.
magician, and he did write. So there's definitely something to go on.
And he had an exact copy in his...
But the name doesn't fit.
Yeah, but that name, false lead, man, false flag. So what about if I was to go to eBay and look at a book, would I be able to tell if it came from the original publishing house or if it was just one of these like reprints? Or how could we maybe go figure out who some people were that bought some of the early copies?
Oh, yeah, this is actually a difficult topic because every time a new first edition comes up, and I think there are ways of figuring out whether it was actually one of the original books
Like
that
prints,
have been printed, because all of the reprints also have a slightly different font and so on, and it looks fairly different if you print a book nowadays, because back at the time they really had a print setter who would set all the individual pages, and so you can see if something was printed back in 1902.
So what's the oldest one that you've held in your hand?
The original one.
So you think you know that you've held one that came from the original printing press?
I did not hold it because when we shot the interview bits for the movie, not all of them, but most of them, I wasn't allowed entry to the United States. So I needed to send my assistant director to go here and film all of this stuff.
And most of the copies are probably somewhere in Chicago.
Not in Chicago. One is in the Magic Castle.
Okay.
Jason England has one, who is a very well-respected sleight of hand artist also. But
Richard has one too, right?
Richard Turner?
No, not Turner.
Or Hedge.
The physicist?
Yeah, Richard Hedge.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I can't comment on that, maybe.
Okay, can you break down what's happening with the magicians that are extremely curious about this? Like, what's the community like that's interested in solving this? Because this is the era of conspiracy theories and Redditors and people solving crimes online. I feel like this is a kind of golden era in a way of galvanizing people all over the world to track down, using the wisdom of the crowd, someone and something. And this is exactly the kind of situation we're in. So,
well, we have a lot of researchers who do very proper and in-depth research on their candidate. And there's a problem with that because mostly they only look at their candidate.
Right.
And what happens? The more you find out about a person, the more information will also fit to what you believe must be true. So the more you know about a person, the more matches you will find.
And more false dead ends. Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who do proper research. I think Chris Washuber's research is very in-depth. Also is Richard Hedges. And also Martin Gardner did a great job, even though his theory nowadays a lot of people don't consider as a serious one anymore because there are a lot of things that don't fit. For example, the writing style. But still, all of these people have done amazing research and have worked years and years on putting together various information, tracking down the copyright notice and tracking down the illustrator, tracking down the name of the printing shop where the book was printed and bound. So,
like, is there a Reddit? Is there like r/figure out SW Erdnase, or like where do you people go if they want to just get into it?
You have to go to the Genie forum, and I don't know when. I think somewhere in 2011. I'm not quite sure. Someone asked how you best study the Erdnase book, and from this, a thread was created that is now 172 pages long, where people just battle with one another about who he might have been. And it's this simple question: how do you study this book? And the first answer was like, read it cover to cover, start over.
It's like a boomerang. It's just start with what boomerangs are and then read it as a book.
Yeah, exactly. So this was the answer to that question. And then it sort of went off course, and it wasn't about the content of the book anymore, but only about the author and the mystery surrounding him.
Matt, just while we're going through this, can you try to dig up some comments and see if we can like find a little bit of bickering to talk about?
Oh yeah, that would be funny.
See.
There's definitely something in there.
So where does he?
Type
look up the,
Erdnase Genie Forum. Erdnase Genie Forum thread. So let's see. Let's look for the names I'm mentioning.
Here it
Richard
is.
Hatch. Last
this
month. Okay, this is some of his research.
So last March, he spent several days in the Copyright Office in Washington
Oh my gosh.
researching just this. It took more than that and about $80 in fees to get all 4 pages of the original copyright.
That's great.
It's expensive, man.
Oh my gosh, I just want to devote my life to this problem now. I feel so intrigued.
A lot of people have
Exactly.
done that.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny how many people just want to like devote themselves to something crazy like this, but I definitely do.
Wow, this is long.
Thread for the century.
Okay, how much time you got?
Yeah.
10 years later.
Oh, something I would like to mention. E.S. Burns was the proprietor of one of the first stores that ever sold the Expert at the Card Table.
Oh.
It was called the
Interesting.
Atlas Novelty Company. And I mean, it's elite. It's not really elite, but what always interested me, okay, he was one of the first persons to sell the book, and his initials are E.S.
Oh.
What?
So
armchair investigator
maybe
over
there's
here
something
thinks that
there.
might be it.
We got Sherlock Holmes up
So-
in here.
Let's go get this guy.
I mean, maybe it was several people, you know? Maybe it was Milton Franklin Andrews, even though the initials M and F for Milton Franklin don't fit. Maybe he took the ES from E.S. Burns and Milton Franklin Andrews, then the Andrews there, and they collaborated and did something, but...
So interesting. Yeah. And who has a desire to share this information and make sure everybody knows about it? Because if you're really using it, you kind of want to keep this stuff tight. But I don't know. Sometimes when you figure out something that clever and it works that well, you just have that desire to share it. So
Oh, for
maybe you want to
sure.
go do it.
Look at this guy's mustache.
Yeah.
That thing is killer.
Did you think about trying to get something like that? A mustache,
mustache
just
like
so
this?
you could like
well,
walk
well,
around
I'm
and
trying.
drain
I
it?
can't get it to work.
So I know you grew up and you read about this book and some of the iterations that came after it. They influenced you. You were interested in magic. But what made you take the jump to putting your efforts and passions into creating an actual full-length movie, which was unbelievable, by the way. I loved every minute of it. But
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us how you kind of got into the movie making scene from this passion.
Yeah. So I started doing magic when I was 14 years old,
that's
14 or
young.
15, somewhere in this area. And then later on, I was accepted in the Magic Circle of Germany. This is what I already told you. And I was accepted with a lot of the material from that book because I used this in my examination. And then right after high school, I went to film school.
Oh.
And in film school, when I started out, I didn't really know where I wanted to go with what I'm doing. Do I want to be a cinematographer? Do I want to be a producer? Do I want to be a director? And the film school I was attending was quite open-minded regarding this, so you could still find your way.
Right, you were still
Yeah.
able to kind of
Some of them are
are
very strict, and you can only apply if you really know what you want to do. So I was quite lucky that I was there, and they let you try different things. And as it turns out, I wanted to be a cinematographer in the first place, but I mean, I can be quite tech nerdy, but it didn't really do it for me. It sort of wasn't enough. And then I always had this problem that I do everything just a little bit. I play guitar and piano, but just a little bit.
Right,
I do a little bit of magic. I do a little bit
there.
of filmmaking. I do a little bit of this. I do a little bit of that. And I always saw this as a weak point. But if you want to be a director, actually this is very, very handy because
and
you
if this
can
book
communicate
becomes your
with
North
every...
Star, you can put it all together.
Yeah, and you can communicate with every department what you want to convey. So even though I'm not a musician myself, due to the fact that I play a little bit of guitar and a little bit of piano and I understand the basics, I can talk to my composer and I can convey to him what I want the music to sound like.
Okay.
Wow.
And the same goes for the cinematography and everything
Right,
else.
so life really, you kind of fell into the right place. Like your life just kept funneling closer and closer to this. Your desire for magic and your jack of all trades ability in cinematography and video, and then you finally just decided to take that leap one day and say, I'm going to go raise the money and make it?
Well, it started out as my bachelor thesis.
Okay.
Oh.
For my bachelor thesis, I decided to write about how to combine interview and documentary elements with fictional storytelling and reenactment scenes.
And this is a docudrama.
Right, exactly. This is a
Yeah.
docudrama. So we mix those two parts. We have the interview parts and the documentary parts, and then we have those narrative reenactment parts.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
And this is also what makes the movie quite special. I mean, nowadays you get a lot of those documentaries as well. Netflix, for example, releases a lot of these kind of investigative, kind of crime documentaries as well, and they play with this kind of style too.
I love it. It's one of my favorite styles of
I think it's very
videography.
intriguing.
I love it,
Because you know that those things are based on real events, and I think this
Right.
makes it very engaging. So
Yeah, HBO did a big series on Chernobyl, and it was like kind of a docudrama, and I just got so into it. And I think that's what drew me kind of to this, was how much I loved that experience. I'm starting to like this whole genre. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So I was writing about this topic in general because I found this quite interesting as well. And I thought, well, the Erdnase mystery would sort of be perfect in order to try this, because we have all these different theories and it just sounds like a period piece to me. But we have also all these researchers we have to talk to, and we have to conduct interviews. So
perfect.
why not combine this?
I can see why it totally made sense to you. And you'd think there'd be hundreds of this kind of type of movie already made, but nobody even had done it yet.
No, a lot of people were
crazy.
talking about it, and they were saying in the magic industry forever, "Oh, Erdnase, let's make a movie about it. It sounds like the perfect plot for a movie," and nobody ever did. So
you were like, step up to it.
yeah.
So if somebody wants to see the full-length movie, where can they go?
They can go on this website, www.erdnase-film.com. And on the 6th of August, we will have an online premiere, so everybody can tune in, and hopefully a lot of people will. And after that, we are still in the distribution process. So we are talking to some distribution channels. I can't tell which ones right now
Okay.
because
but
we
the
don't have
website
a
will be a
fixed
good
deal.
centerpiece, because this will always link to where you can catch it.
Yeah, definitely. If we have a fixed deal, it will also be there, and it will say now available on Netflix or Amazon or whatever.
All right, thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming out, and
Thank you for having me.
Super fun to learn about the mystery. And
What do you think is better, to be unaware and fascinated, or to be informed and disenchanted?
I'm done.